Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. County Board Chairman Andrew Rand and I were both sitting back here as we're kind of the anchors of bringing this thing home, wondering, you see two politicians on at the end of a program, you wonder how many people are going to stay to listen to the end, so we appreciate that. I did have the fortune when Jan and Nikki came and asked me to do this, that I had the time open and it was such an easy topic to discuss that I said, yeah, really quick. So with that, I'd like to start off by thanking Jan and Jonathan and IBI, not just for putting this together today, but for all that they're doing in the community through IBI Magazine. It really does a lot for our community. Thank you to Jonathan and Jan. So with all these speakers coming up today talking about the different areas of the community that they work in and the different groups that they touch, it really is kind of an awesome position to be in as the mayor of a community that gives back so much. I serve on the board of the Illinois Municipal League, which is a group of about 45 mayors from across the state. And we meet on a quarterly basis, and we get together and for the most part, commiserate about how tough it is to be the mayor in our cities right now in these tough times. But we also have an opportunity to talk to each other about challenges in our communities and good things in our communities and positive things that we have going on. And I really do find myself more often talking to the other mayors about the positive things that are happening in our community. We have just so many different groups doing so many things in so many different areas. We almost take it for granted in Peoria. You all know what I mean. This is kind of like, talking, they say, preaching to the choir. I know this group that's assembled here today is here because you're associated in some way with volunteerism, not-for-profit, something that's giving back to the community. So I don't need to sit up here today and talk to you about the importance of it. But what I do want to just talk a little bit about, maybe in a couple of examples, is how an idea that sometimes sounds really crazy really may turn into something that's just utterly outstanding, and other people copy and try to duplicate, replicate, and so on. They mentioned in the intro there that I've had the fortune of being involved with the Memphis run from St. Jude in Memphis to Peoria for 22 years. And you think about, we all know it, we've all heard about it, we all know what they do. But could you imagine sitting somewhere with friends or associates and having somebody say, you know what you should do? You should get some guys and girls and take them down to Memphis and then drop them off there and have them run back to Peoria to raise money for St. Jude. Seriously? 465 miles? So, we could probably all put ourselves in a situation where somebody might have challenged you to do something stupid like that, or said on a bet, I'll bet you won't do that. But 2 people did it. 2 people took them up on that bet. Mike McCoy and Gene Pratt, 36 years ago, said, of course, needless to say, the guy that challenged him was Jim Maloof, but they took the challenge. It'll be 35 years this year that thousands of people have gone to Memphis, Tennessee, in the middle of the summer when it's the hottest of the year, got out of motorhomes and ran back to Peoria, 465 miles, to raise money for St. Jude Children's Hospital. So that first year they did it, there was just a handful. I think there was 20 or 22 people. When they're leaving in the motorhome, heading east, one of the motorhomes they're in going up the hill from East Peoria up towards Morton, one of the motorhomes caught on fire and burned up. Talk about an omen. They raised about $20,000 that year and thought that they were kings of the hill. $20,000 35 years ago was a bucket load of money. So fast forward to this year, it's the 35th anniversary. They've raised, over the last 34 years, somewhere in the vicinity of $40.5 million. Instead of just one run from Memphis to Peoria, there's 39 satellite runs from every direction you could possibly get: Chicago, St. Louis, LaSalle, Peru, Quad Cities, all over the place. So last year, the runs combined raised over $4 million last year. It's incredible. And it was all because somebody said, let's try to think of something crazy. How hard is it in the community to kind of come up with something new? So I'm not sure, and I'm not even sure if the sheriff's here today. Hopefully he's not. But I didn't tell him I was really going to go into this, but you kind of take that idea, and 10 years ago, they came up with a motorcycle ride from Memphis to Peoria. Now, that's starting to make a little bit more sense. You know, you got two wheels and gas-powered. I told the sheriff, I think it's kind of he was hitting this midlife crisis where, okay, this 465 miles running is kind of crazy. You know, we can do this on a motorcycle. So 10 years ago, they did the motorcycle run or race. It's not a race, it's just a drive back and forth. But so in 10 years, they've raised somewhere in the vicinity of 600,000 or 6 million over 10 years. And then 5 years ago, they did a Corvette drive. So you see the midlife crisis thing. You went from running to motorcycle to Corvette. And so now the Corvette guys are doing it. And this is the 5th year for that. And they're raising $300,000 a year. So my point just is thinking outside of the box a little bit, but the good it does is just incredible. So as mayor, that's one example. We can talk about Peoria Promise. Peoria Promise that was not me. I was part of a group of people that really tried to get our arms around how important it was to prioritize educating our kids. And so, we put a group of people together. We got knee pads for everybody, and basically what we do is go around the community, and I've probably been on almost all of your doorsteps, begging for money to send kids to ICC. And we pay for their books and fees for 2 years at ICC. This will be our 8th year, probably easily over 2,000 kids have had an opportunity to go through the program. And we're like all you other not-for-profits out there. We are like struggling big time. It's all hand to mouth. And how can you get a more basic need in a community than providing education opportunities for all your kids, for tomorrow's leaders? And almost anywhere I go, I get somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, Mayor, can you help us? Can you help us find people for this? Can you put a plug in for this?" This morning out in front, I talked to Cindy Morris, and Cindy said, "Hey, make sure you put a plug in for Adopt a School." So, is Cindy still here? Yeah, Cindy, you owe me one. But that's exactly what this is all about. It's not just about our little niche group that we're working with or the charity that we're trying to help. It's about the whole community. So I think what I'm really going to refocus my energies on this year and for the next however long that may be, not just to stay involved with all of them. And I could start naming all the groups that are doing such good work in our community, but I'd forget half of them, and then you'd end up getting mad at me. But what we really need to do is encourage that next generation of leadership, that next generation of people to fill in to our shoes. Now, I'm not saying there's not a lot of young folks out there in our community that are really getting actively involved in this, but there's not enough. And we've had in the different boards I'm involved in and the different groups that I participate with, it's not that the younger kids don't want to be a part of the community, don't want to play an active role in it. I think it's just they have so many other diversions in their lives. I mean, this world moves so quickly. There's so much going on that it's hard sometimes for the younger generations to focus in on what it is that they want to do, where it is that they think that they can play an important part in the community, and how can you be significant? How can you be relevant? And so it's up to us to teach them that. I mean, I hate to sound like I'm getting old, but I'm getting old, and it used to be, you'd kind of either follow your parents' footsteps or you latched onto something at a younger age, and you just, it was just natural for you to do it. In the younger generation today, like I said, just has so many diversions that it's kind of nonstop. It's hard for them to stop and focus in on one different area. So I would say that as a community, in addition to trying to continue to talk about our specific areas that we're so involved with, acknowledging that it's probably only going to get tougher for us, especially in the not-for-profit world, to figure out how we're going to make ends meet with the increasing need and the decreasing amount of support that we're getting in a lot of ways. We need to take a minute and figure out not just what the next best fundraising opportunity is or the next best way that we can put more of a spotlight on our organization, but collectively thinking about, and I hope that maybe this is part of the thought process that Jan and Jonathan wanted us to think about in volunteerism is we just don't want to keep our community in this place that we hold that is strong, that is a really giving community. I don't think there's a community per capita that gives more than this community gives. If it is, I'd like to know where it is. But help us to focus on how are we going to reinvent what we do? How are we going to think outside of the borders of what we've traditionally done to be able to get good people to participate in our organizations and help make our community stronger? So that really is one of the things that I would challenge this group, especially I'm seeing a few rows of our next generation of leadership, young people that we're going to depend on to take the shoes of many of the leaders that are out there right now, fill those shoes, and maybe make running shoes out of them so we can move a little bit faster with a little bit more energy, because that's what we need to do. So all the speakers that we've had today, what a group. I remember Marcus Beelan several years ago when he was still at Bradley. We brought Arnie Duncan, who is the United States Secretary of Education, to Peoria, and had a real big one-day conference just talking about education challenges and what we can do to try to facilitate better learning opportunities, not just in our city and our state, but around the country. Marcus Beelan, probably not even 20 years old at the time, gets up in this meeting, U.S. Secretary of Education standing right there, pretty impressive group of speakers, several hundred people in the audience, and pitched for a job and said, I'll tell you one thing you guys need to do to help education is you need to hire me. And Quest was pretty smart, because those folks eyeballed him and got him on board, and that's why he's doing such a great job over there. But I just want to say that the whole group that IBI put together to come here today to talk to us about the importance of volunteerism, like I said when I started, we all know what it is. I'd say probably if we did a show of hands, 99% of the people in here are on a board or boards, volunteer at a number of different charities and know what this is all about. But what we really need to do to not only maintain the level where Peoria is, what we're known for, it's just what Peoria does. What's Peoria do? They raise all this money for all these different groups. Maybe one last example before I go. The Passage to India. I think everybody's got to be familiar with that. Passage to India just started 10 years ago. Passage to India was put together by a group of predominantly local folks from the Indian community as a way to raise money for an outstanding group in our community, Easter Seals. They started out at Barracks Cater Inn 10 years ago with, I think they might have had 80 people at the first dinner. And they raised, I don't even remember what they raised. It wasn't a whole lot of money. Maybe 50,000 or so. And they grew it a little bit out at Barracks, and they went to a different location, another location. For the last several years, they've hosted Passage to India at the Civic Center. Used to be upstairs in the grand ballroom. Got too big for that. They're in the exhibition hall this year, the exhibition space. There'll be probably over 1,200 people at this event, which celebrates a lot of the Indian culture. You won't go anywhere in the world and find better, authentic Indian food and see some Indian talent, some dancing and so on, all to raise money for a good cause. And I didn't come up here today just to plug the specific groups, but using examples of little ideas that grew into something fabulous, which is really what Peoria has a knack for doing. So I'd like to just end today, hopefully putting you in a spirit of feeling good about yourselves for what we do. This is a brutal time for us. And I'm not talking about us on the city council. It's always brutal if you're on the city council. It's a brutal time when you're doing the works that we're doing, a lot of the volunteer work, a lot of the not-for-profit work, trying to help different parts of our community that need help when the economy is tough. A lot of people are pulling back on their funds. But I tell you, God is blessing every single one of you for the works that you're doing in the specific areas you're doing them in. Because He knows you're all doing them for the right reasons. We're not doing them for a pat on the back. We're not doing it for an item to add to your resume. We're doing it because there's a specific area of our community that needs help, and we're stepping forward to do it. We're going to continue to do that. So let's just take a couple seconds to feel good. Don't break your arm trying to reach around and pat yourself on the back, but feel good about what you're doing. You're having tough times. We're all having tough times, but we're in this together. We all go to each other's fundraisers and different events. We're all here to support each other. Really try to focus in on what it is that you can do to encourage more participation, more volunteerism in our community, especially with the younger generation, and at the same time that we're focusing in on that younger generation, on the next generation of leadership, but also being inclusive and being diverse, making sure that we change the face of our boards and our commissions in the different fundraising things we do to celebrate the diversity that we have in our community. Because the diversity in this community has changed so much over the last 10 or 15 years. And there's a lot of people here that may not be native to Peoria, but they're here, they love it, they want to participate, they don't know how. So that's something that I'm really focused on. I hope you'll help me focus on doing that. Thanks again for taking your time to attend this event this morning, and to IBI for facilitating the discussion. And look forward to working with all of you to continue to make this community the best that we can be. Have a good afternoon.